Hello, Groveland Township. Today's video is being done on October the 21st, and we're going to try and bring you up to date on 3 or 4 items. First one is, for those of you who weren't able to go to the uh, auto show that we had on October the 9th, I want you to know that it went off great. We had perfect weather, and we had a great little cruise from Waypoint Church in Springfield all the way up to the Holly parking lot at Mount Holly. No problems at all. There were actually 68 cars in the procession there. And at the car show itself in Mount Holly's parking lot, we had 168 cars by the end of the day. It was a perfect day for weather. Everybody had a great time. If you wanted to see the kind of cars that were in it, they're all posted on our website. Feel free to go there and click on it. You can go through the photos of the various cars if you're interested. The next 3 items I want to cover are all traffic related. The first one is, if you recall, some time ago, the supervisors in Oakland County had got together and issued a petition to both Lansing and the Road Commission to ask them to consider if there was some way we could change some of the speed limits on gravel roads. They're generally statewide, unposted, 55 miles an hour, conditions permitting. They wanted to know if there could be a consideration for 35 or 45 mile an hour speeds on them. And to that end, the Road Commission has agreed to study a small number of gravel roads that they will temporarily post 35 miles an hour and see if it really makes a difference in the speeds before they decide what to do. All of the townships submitted a road. That doesn't mean they're going to do all of them, but they wanted a list of ones to pick from. And in our case, we submitted Wolf Road because there's curves around the swamp and some complaints of speeding. We thought that'd be a good one to test. So if you happen to see 35 mile an hour speed limits in the future on Wolf Road, you know we made it into the test. If it's not, there's some other communities that they decided to pick. And when we know what the outcome of that result is, we'll be sure to let you know in a future video. The other item I wanted to discuss was we want to try and find a way to help control speed on our primary roads, which are paved. And that's, Grange Hall Road, part of Oak Hill Road, part of Groveland Road, and now all of Barron Road. The problem is we wanted to put in those radar signs that kind of remind people when they're going too fast, because they're pretty effective at getting most reasonable people to slow down a bit. The issue is you cannot put one of those signs up unless you first have a posted speed limit sign. So I went to the Road Commission and said we'd like to post the 55 mile an hour speed limit just on our paved primary roads so that we could ultimately buy those radar signs and help curtail speeding on them. And I have to say we've had some pretty positive receptivity to it in the Road Commission. They haven't done it yet, but we have suggested, since Barron Road is just being paved now, that would be the first road we'd like to do it on. And so if you see speed limit signs going up on that, you'll know that we got approval for it to change the rules. And subsequent to that, our intent will be to buy some radar signs at each end of the road to help slow speeding down. And if it's effective, we'll try and do it to the rest of the paved roads as well. So again, not done yet, but in the hopper and seems to be pretty well received. I think we have a good chance at getting something on one or both of those 2 issues. The last item I want to talk about is the Renaissance Festival. Typically what's happened in the Renaissance Festival over the years that it's been here, and for those of you who don't know, it's actually in Holly Township. It's just that part of the parking's in Groveland, and we unfortunately have been dealing with the traffic issues on it all along. Well, this year was a disaster for a couple of weekends at the end again. In the past, we've done things, it's improved it, and it works for maybe 2 or 3 years pretty well, and then we have another colossal breakdown, and this year was one of them. The last time was about 4 years ago when they decided to pave part of I-75, close it down, and divert all the traffic onto M15 at the time the festival was going on, and it just made a horrendous mess. The next couple of years, one of them, they were closed because of COVID. Worked fairly well. This year we had problems again, and we think it's because of a couple of items. First of all, everybody's been cooped up for so long, we think they had an exceptionally good turnout that they perhaps didn't anticipate well enough. And so at the latter weekends, the last 3 or 4, traffic got to be a real problem again. In addition to that, we noticed that the signs they've normally been required to have at each end of Dixie Highway and at the exits 101 and at 106 telling people whether or not the festival's open or what lane of traffic to be in and those things that help, we're missing, and it's because so many people have reopened venues this year that all of that stuff got leased and they didn't have any. So I decided that we needed to try again to see if we get Holly and Groveland together with all the various parties that are involved with running that festival, and we were successful in that. About 2 weeks ago, we had the Holly Township supervisor, the assistant fire chief, and the fire marshal for Holly. We had our fire chief, Chief Mason, myself. We had Kathy Parker and her son who does the parking at the facility. We had the Michigan State Police and the Oakland County Sheriff represented there. And in addition to that, we had our planning chair, Jenny Sevigny, for the Planning Commission, as well as Commissioner Bob Hoffman, who is over both Holly and Groveland Township. We kind of went over all the issues, and I had suggested during the meeting that one of the things that seems to be recurring is when the festival's up to about 27,000 people, it can usually work pretty well. When it gets up around 28 or 9, it starts breaking down on the traffic flow. After everybody discussed everything, it was apparent that both the Michigan State Police and the Oakland County Sheriff felt that the real problem is not enough entry and exit points to the festival. They can't move the cars in and out quick enough, and they referenced other venues they've had with far more traffic that they don't have the same kind of problem on. So the outcome of this meeting, I'm going to give you kind of the gist of what I think is going to come out of it. And when we know the final design, we'll do a new video and tell you exactly what it is. But since both the state police and the Oakland County Sheriff feel the problem is entry and exit points, I am happy to say that this time Holly was very receptive to listening to this. And in the past, where they wouldn't allow a couple of entry or exit points in Holly Township, I think they're likely to approve them this time. It was suggested that they need a point on Laring Road, and it was suggested that they need a point where they own access also on Holdridge Road. I think both of those are going to get approved by their planning commission. And it was also suggested that what would be a big help is a second entry point to the main parking lot at the north end on Dixie Highway, and I kind of suspect that one's likely to get approved by our board as well. Both the state police and the sheriff feel that's going to fix the problem. We're just going to have to wait and see. There are some other issues. I am upset that the Renaissance Festival didn't have the signs which help move traffic and tell them in an emergency when the facility's full and closed for the day. So I've indicated to them that next year they're going to have to buy signs, and we're going to have to know they have them in place, both north and south Dixie Highway and the exit 101 and exit 106. So if traffic backs up, you can tell them when the facility's full instead of having them wait in line for 4 hours and then leave. That's part of the solution, I think. In addition to that, we realized that several of the streets had unsustainable parking problems. Worse is Perryville, where it actually would have been impossible to get an ambulance up and down. Holdridge also had some parking, and then in Holly Township there were 2 or 3 roads that also had parking. To that end, Commissioner Bob Hoffman has said he would go to the Road Commission and see if he could get no parking signs for the 7 weekends at least that those 4 or 5 roads would require. So if you ask me what I think is going to happen, I believe that after the 2 planning commissions meet, we will likely see them at least try to put the extra entry and exit points in. Commissioner Hoffman will try and get posting for the 4 or 5 roads that had excess parking on them. And we think that with the signs, it will be as good as we can probably make it. If, in fact, all of those changes don't work, and again, the sheriff and the Michigan State Police think that that will fix it, then the only thing that's going to be left is probably for us to determine whether or not we try to get an order that limits the daily attendance to the facility, which is what I had kind of suggested in the beginning. So at this point in time, we're going to have to wait and see. The Planning Commission in Holly and Groveland will both be meeting. They will end up discussing those items that I just referenced, and I'm sure there's some other ones. I've talked to our trustee Jim Christopher about the issues, and he had some other ideas that I thought were pretty good as well. So we'll just have to wait and see what the 2 planning commissions come up with first. When we try all of these, if this doesn't work, I really don't think there's going to be much else left except to try daily capping the attendance. And I don't think a court of law would do that unless we had exhausted whatever both police agencies told us needed to be tried first. So as that develops and gets finalized, excuse me, I will make sure we do another video and tell you what the final design actually looks like. So until the next time, Groveland, have a great day. Be safe. If you didn't get to go to the car show, maybe next year you can make it. We've been lucky that both times we've had fantastic weather, and we'll let you know about the possible changes in posting of speed on our paved roads, as well as an option on the gravel roads, if and when they actually get approved and tested. Thank you. Have a good day.